Consciousness is always here to rest back into. The key is, don't overcomplicate it. You don't find consciousness. It's already here. You don't have to think about how to find consciousness, because that very thought is consciousness. All thought, all knowledge is structured in consciousness. So just stop. Stop reacting to thoughts. Stop grasping and believing thoughts. Stop trying to use a technique to calm thoughts. What thought is arising in your consciousness right now? Look. Does the thought start with I don't understand. I'm feeling restless. I just want to relax. I can't stay in presence because XYZ is bothering me too much. I keep thinking about it. Watch that I arise. Watch attention move toward the I. What is the feeling of that I before I become something? Before I start worrying about my problems, troubles. Before I start looking for a solution or thinking about the solutions I already have. Just the I. Watch the I thought arise. Notice what it arises out of. Who are you before the I thought arises? Where are you? What are you other than the I? Do you see how you don't have to move somewhere to rest in that I experience? The being. Where are you going to go to be? How much do you have to think to be what's aware of the thinking? What problem do you have to solve to recognize that which is there, whether there's a problem, a solution, or no problem and no solution? You are not a problem to solve. Early in life, you started associating I with some kind of shame, some kind of problem that needs to be fixed. I'm not psychic, I just know the way the human psyche functions. Almost no one escapes this. We learn it from others around us. They don't teach it to us literally. Worse, they teach it to us empathically, subliminally. So we learn to associate I, the experience of I, the pure experience of being, with something that needs to be hidden, fixed, run from, etc. But it's not at all. The I sense is pure. It's unsullied. It has no need to repair anything, including itself. It doesn't move. It's there whether there's a thought or not, including the really fundamental thoughts that we've built scaffolding of thoughts on top of over the years to avoid. Those fundamental thoughts and beliefs like, I'm not enough. I need to do something. I need to manage something. Those tendencies to fix, to manage, to stay busy, to run from our own emotions, those aren't what you are at all. This is the good news. What you are is simply not touched by any of that. But we go just a step beyond what we are almost immediately when we start to think. And thinking goes on all day. So what we feel is running, seeking, hiding, chasing, trying to feel better, trying to feel better, trying to feel better. How do we try to feel better? Well, we have dysfunctional and destructive coping mechanisms, drugs, alcohol, severe addictions. And then we have somewhat functional coping mechanisms, that are doing the same thing. Overeating, gossip, complaining. And then we even have higher self versions of the same coping mechanisms. Spiritual practices, spiritual seeking, meditation, positive thinking. That's a hard one to swallow because we've learned that that makes us feel better, or it convinces other people that we're better. But let me just ask you two things. One, does it make you really profoundly, unequivocally feel peace? And what good is it to convince others that we feel good, we're good people, we're happy, when underneath it all we're really not? It's inauthentic. So again, the really good news here is all of those coping mechanisms, whether they're dysfunctional and self-destructive, or whether they're socially endorsed and actually do ease the burden of being a human to some degree, none of these coping mechanisms are what you are. That's the good news. You're not the worst belief you have about yourself, and you're not the best belief you have about yourself. You're free of all of that right now. You don't need to become free of it. You are free of it. You don't need to find your way back to self. Capital S, self. You are capital S, self. That's it. The I sense the purity of I am with no labels, no conceptual framework. If you're hearing this and thinking, well, Buddhism says there's no self, you're missing the point of I am, totally. I know that place, but that's a thought. Only through the lens of pure, clear, rested sense of I am, or pure consciousness, will you ever start to realize the more subtle levels of realization. It doesn't happen conceptually. And if your mind is full of concepts, you're not even rested enough to experience this pure being. Now again, that's saying a bit much because the pure being is here. But the grasping to thoughts, the using thoughts and knowledge and understanding, including spiritual knowledge and understanding, can be very hypnotic and it can fool you. Don't be fooled by your own grasping of thoughts. Let go. Just let go of that knowledge. It's not doing you any good. Rest back in the being, the beingness that's completely not contingent upon thoughts and beliefs. The beingness that doesn't care what group you're in, what you believe or what you know. You don't need social status here. You don't need to convince anyone of how smart you are here. That's the beauty of it. The being is not contingent upon validation. The being is not contingent upon knowledge. The being is not contingent upon whether you feel loved or not loved. It's just being. It's there, always. It's looking right through your eyes right now. It's aware of all of this. And it knows. It knows without thinking. That's the key. It knows without thinking. What is it in your experience right now that knows without thinking? And then what does it know? Not a thought. It's also not obscure. It's not esoteric. It's not a trippy experience. It's so simple. It knows its own being as being. Being is knowing is being. One and the same. You don't need a thought to know who or what you are, of course. You just have to be willing to rest in it and be. Don't grasp onto those thoughts. But what about this? Or what about that? Or, here's my history. Here's what usually happens when I get here. Thoughts. Don't grasp them. They're not about you, no matter what they say they're about. Don't be fooled by your own mind. Just be. Just do what you don't have to do anything to do. Be. Don't leave the driveway. Don't start the car. Don't convince yourself of how much you know about spirituality. Don't use a technique. You don't need any of that. The being is right here. It's right where you are. Right where you've always been. Woohoo! Svaha. Hallelujah.